What's up, everybody? This is Trey Biddy with HawgSports. Of course, you can always reach us at HawgSports.com. It's been an amazing April for Arkansas sports, and whether you're talking about baseball, recruiting, basketball recruiting, or football recruiting, spring football has been really entertaining. We're going to talk a lot about that at the start of the show, as well as get into all the other stuff with recruiting with Danny West, Curtis Wilkerson, and the transfer portal. It's going to be an exciting show today. So we got plenty to get to. Let's get to it now. Before we get started, I want to remind you there's plenty of ways to watch and listen. You can always tune in on Facebook Live. If you haven't followed us on Facebook, become one of 90,000 plus Razorback fans to follow the page. Also available on YouTube. We're up to close to 16,000 YouTube followers on the HawgSports channel. We'd love to have you subscribe there and interact with the video. Share it with somebody else if you think might like it. And also hit the notifications bell on YouTube so you're alerted anytime we upload new videos. Also available on Apple Podcasts. Follow HawgSports Live on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, anywhere else you can think of to find your favorite podcast. But we would love for you to take a moment and leave us a 5-star review on our podcast channels if you haven't done so already. Say something nice about the show. Let others know what to expect. Share it with your papaw. He doesn't know about it. He doesn't know. He's not an internet guy. He doesn't know about podcasts. Show him the show. If he's a big Razorback fan, he's going to enjoy it, and you know he will. All right, everybody. Where to start today? HawgSports, by the way, is just $1 right now for your first month if you want to give us a try. It's been an exciting time. Now, just looking ahead before we get into too much, looking ahead, you've got the Woo Pig Weekend on tap coming up. This was released from Arkansas Communications. You've got, so starting Friday, April 14th, you got, not everybody's into tennis or softball or stuff, but yeah, it's a good opportunity to go check out some of these things. Softball games have been very entertaining, obviously. Volleyball. So you got men's tennis at 5, softball at 6, 6:30 you got volleyball versus Missouri State in Barnhill Arena, free admission for tennis, and then baseball versus Tennessee at Baum-Walker Stadium at 7 o'clock. What an exciting weekend. You couldn't ask for a better weekend considering everything else that's going, because we've also got the red-white game. Saturday, April 15th, 10 o'clock, Hogtown pregame party begins in Lot 44, free admission. Then you got the red-white spring game at noon in Donald W. Reynolds Razorback Stadium, free admission. What a great weekend. Bring your kids. Family weekend. I mean, spend some time in Fayetteville if you're up here in northwest Arkansas. I know a lot of people, obviously, there's a lot going on in Little Rock, and I say amazing April in Arkansas. I mean, obviously, I'm talking about Razorback sports here, and we're certainly thinking about all you guys still dealing with all the ramifications from tornadoes. Just an awful tragedy in this state. But if you want to get away for a little bit, it's a good weekend. 3 o'clock softball versus UAB in Bogle Park. 6 o'clock baseball, game 2 versus Tennessee in Baum-Walker Stadium. And if you want to stick around Sunday, you got tennis versus Tennessee at the Billingsley Tennis Center, free admission. Softball versus UAB at 1, and then, of course, wrapping up the series against Tennessee. I know that's probably what most people are interested in Baum-Walker Stadium. So a lot of stuff going on this weekend. Hopefully it'll be nice weather. I haven't seen anything to indicate it's going to be awful weather. I saw a little bit of a chance of rain for Saturday, but that's, again, a forecast extended that far is almost worthless. Sorry, Dan. Arkansas coming off of a 2-1 series win at Ole Miss, 11-2 on April 7th. Doubleheader, 7-4 in the next game, and then one on Saturday, 6-4. Up next is just Little Rock, calling herself Little Rock now. Little Rock on Tuesday and Wednesday before that 3-game series against Tennessee. For your SEC West Division leading Razorbacks, 8-4 in conference right now. It's a game ahead of LSU. 25-6 overall, 20-2 at home, and 3-3 on the road for the Razorback baseball program. Y'all want to talk football? Let's talk football first, then we'll get to Danny, and then we'll wrap things up with Curtis. Talk football recruiting, obviously, with Danny. There's been a lot of visitors coming in and a lot of scheduled to come in. And basketball, obviously, has been pretty wild right now already with things going on with the transfer portal. Where to start, really? Let's look at, let's see. Let's look at how things went. So this was actually a bit of a surprise. We were able to watch the entire practice on Saturday. It was inside the stadium, second practice in the stadium. Wasn't a full scrimmage, but they ran, at least in the time that I was able to watch, 80 plays. Okay, 78 plays is what I had him at. They ran a few more as I was leaving the stadium. I had to leave early because the Zoom was immediately following, so I had to rush home. It takes me like 13 minutes to get home. I had to rush home, get ready for the Zoom press conferences following the scrimmage. So I would estimate they ran about 100 plays because there was about 8 minutes or so left on the clock when I was out of the stadium, and they were working on some low red zone stuff. But they got in team. It was thud up and early whistle, probably depending on who the guy is. Rocket Sanders not getting thud up too much. But it was a pretty physical scrimmage overall. They didn't ever do move the ball up and down the field. They were doing like situational first downs, third downs, red zone, low red zone. They also had a period of time where they did 9 versus 9 or kind of like half line, but they would basically have 2 offensive linemen take a knee, 2 defensive linemen take a knee, and everybody else would go. I think the reason they do that is so, in a game, like you run a series, then you go to the sideline, you rest, and you come back in, you go to the game. It's especially harder on the big guys. I think it's an opportunity for them to, take a rest and let everybody else continue to go full speed. I think that's why they do that. They did that for a few plays in there. But that I included all that in the stats that I recorded, and these are very rough. I mean, it's an early whistle, it's non-tackle. I'm field level for almost all of it, and so like getting an accurate yardage. So just keep that in mind, especially for the rushing, because you take away any possibility of breaking a tackle with an early whistle. I had KJ Jefferson 10 of 17, 58.8% for 157 yards with a touchdown. I've broken down every play, every yardage, play by play. Stats, broken it down into every single category. You can check it out on HawgSports. Again, HawgSports.com. It's the website. Part of the 24/7 Sports Network. Jacoby Criswell had a nice day, 11 of 15, 135 yards, 2 touchdowns. I feel like Jacoby is starting to maybe take over the reins a little bit there with the second team. I feel like he's starting to kind of separate himself a little bit, which if you're a Razorback fan, you hope to see that. You expected to see that. A guy coming in from North Carolina, former 4-star, backing up, 2 guys one guy that's in the NFL and another guy that's going to be in the NFL. You'd expect him to come in. Cade Fortin, 4 of 9, 44.4%, 56 yards, and Malachi Singleton, 6 of 8 for 61 yards. It's 75%. And those were the only quarterbacks that got in. They didn't put in Riker or Cade, Cade Renfro. They didn't put them in. Obviously, Renfro's still dealing with the knee. I had Isaac TeSlaa with 5 catches for 72 yards and a touchdown, and I'm getting to where I'm prepared to say that I think that TeSlaa is going to end up being their leading receiver this year. And I might go so far to say leads in yardage and catches. I just think, I've been impressed with what I've seen with Isaiah Sategna lately, and Bryce Stevens too, but I think Isaiah, to me, has a little bit higher ceiling. He had a 22-yard tunnel screen catch and run where I don't think anybody touched him. They blew the whistle. If they hadn't blown the whistle, I'm convinced he would have taken it 66 yards for a touchdown. But it was a 22-yard gain where they blew the whistle. I don't think anybody ever touched him. Just looked extremely quick. That was actually his only catch on the day. But him and TeSlaa, I think, are starting to do something. Andrew Armstrong had 3 catches for 73 yards. One of them was a 42-yarder. I think what happened on the 42-yarder, Jalen Braxton was covering him, and to me it looked like he kind of lost sight of him. Criswell had a lot of time to scramble around and buy time. I think you run into scramble drill at that point, and he went deep on him, and I think he just kind of lost his eyes, which happens with young defensive backs sometimes. So got to work on that, obviously. Armstrong's done some good things. Cameron Bibby, walk-on redshirt freshman, 4 catches for 62 yards, 2 touchdowns, had a great catch. I don't think it was intended to be a back shoulder, but there were 2 defensive backs on him. He had to come back and get the ball right out of bounds. I was happened to be standing right there watching it. It was a really incredible catch by Bibby. And TeSlaa might have had the catch of the game. It was just during I think past Skelly early in practice before they started running plays and stuff, but he goes up at the sideline and catches it, right at the tip of the ball like this, and never uses his other hand, never brings it into his body, just catches it 2 feet in, out of bounds, holding it like that the whole time. Nice hands. It was impressive. I think they put it up maybe on the Razorback Instagram account. I've got all the wide receiver stats, but obviously TeSlaa was the standout. Raheem Sanders, 9 carries for 44 yards. I mean, he didn't have a carry over 10 yards because, they're going to blow the whistle early. These rushing stats are, I won't say worthless, but they're just not a good indicator. Rashad Dubinion, 3 carries for 13. A.J. Green, 2 for 7. Got everybody else on there, obviously. But nobody had like a run over 9 yards because Jazreel Batchert, no, he didn't have one either. Nobody had a run over 9 yards just because of the early whistle. But I've got everything broken up. Nice and neat. Got some big defensive plays that were made, and you can read all that on HawgSports. They've continued to experiment with the offensive line, rotating things around differently. Just looking at the breakdown of the depth chart, this is how it showed up on Saturday. You had KJ, Jacoby, Cade Fortin, Malachi Singleton in that order. This is like an order of appearance. They're just mixing things up, and we're going to get to the offensive line because that's an area that we really need to discuss. But you had Raheem Sanders, Rashad Dubinion, A.J. Green. They've really rotated those guys back and forth. It's been Dubinion or Green like every other day. They've switched those guys. So it definitely lends to the idea that they feel pretty similar about those two guys and their ability to help. Running back's going to get a boost whenever Dominic Johnson's able to come back. He's one of the guys on the sidelines working, hitting a tractor tire with a hammer, doing the ropes, kind of like very CrossFit style workouts over there with Ben Souders, the new strength coach. But there's a healthy number of guys over there doing that kind of stuff right now is what what happens. I would say right now with Raheem Sanders, I would be done with any kind of live contact with him. I would not let him scrimmage Saturday. He's healthy. You've got 11 practices under your belt with him. And by the way, they'll go Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So they have 3 practices in a row, basically, at the end of the week leading up to the red-white game. But I would be done with contact with Raheem Sanders. He's healthy. Let him go into the offseason healthy. Let him have a great offseason and come back. I mean, you know what he can do. 1,400-yard rushing. What do you have, 278 receiving yards, something like that? All right, come on. He's good. And then you got Isaiah Augustave coming in also as another really highly touted running back. Wide receivers, I mentioned that I think it's starting to take shape with Isaac TeSlaa. Andrew Armstrong was the other starter on Saturday, and then Isaiah Satania. We've also seen Bryce Stevens start in that slot. We've seen Samuel Bakke start quite a bit also at wide receiver. You also have, you have to consider Tyrone Broden's not doing full contact. He's got a minor MCL sprain, non-surgical, but he's been out there practicing, but he's not going through like live contact stuff. But Broden's another guy to keep an eye on. Like if you're talking about a potential deep threat guy, he might end up being that guy. And don't forget about Jaden Wilson also. Jaden Wilson is, he was a guy that Sam Pittman couldn't quit talking about, and he's been injured also. So those are other guys to consider. For the guys that are out there right now, I think I would put Isaac TeSlaa at the top of the heap right now as far as this is the guy I'm looking for on 3rd and 10, and this is the guy that's might develop into my go-to guy. I see Satania catching a lot of screen passes, and I've seen a lot of screen passes also. I'll tell you what else I've seen that a lot of people have asked about, and that is Arkansas going to throw over the middle? If Saturday was any indication, absolutely. I would venture to say like half the throws were right over the middle of the field, whether it's a slant, a post, crossing pattern, what have you. A lot of throws right over the middle of the field. So they're definitely going to attack the middle. I mean, they're not just doing that to do it. So it's definitely an emphasis. Plenty of throws down the sideline, throws out to the flats, screen passes, all of those kind of things. But we're seeing a lot of stuff over the middle also. So I have had that question quite a bit. And I wanted to make sure to mention that because that's something that stood out to me in the scrimmage on Saturday. Nathan Back, Luke Hasz, Ty Washington. Luke Hasz is not the starting tight end, but he is. Okay, he's not listed. He's never really come out as the starter unless they've been, in 12 personnel with 2 tight ends. But he's the starting tight end. Luke Hasz. Let's see his stats real quick if I got him here from the scrimmage Saturday. I'll have to find him. All right. Luke Hasz had 3 catches for 49 yards, 37, 3, and 9 yards. Easily the leading tight end. Nathan Bax, who is listed generally as the starter, 1 catch for -1 yards. backs can do some things for you as a blocker. He's not like a devastating blocker, but he's the best blocking tight end that they have right now. He's not going to do a whole lot for you, as last season indicated, as this scrimmage indicated. He's not going to do a whole lot for you in the passing game. Which is one reason I would like to see them go out and get a veteran tight end who can play the inline tight end spot, which I'm not really sure Luke is going to fit that role at 6'3", 226. But go out and get a guy who's bigger, who, okay, it's, third and short or it's third and goal or whatever. This guy can help you move the pile, but he could also sneak out and catch a pass and be very reliable doing that. A veteran guy that's been in the college weight room for a while. That's what I think they're missing a little bit. Tyrus Washington, has that a little bit, but he's, to me, also more kind of in the mold of Luke Has, more of a receiver-type tight end. He's bigger than Has is, but I'm talking about a guy that goes, 260 plus, 260, that can catch a pass for you also. That's what, and they have plenty of spots. We're talking about 77 guys on the roster right now on scholarship out of 85 they can have. They need to get a couple of defensive linemen. They need a couple of safeties or defensive backs, depending on how they switch things around. I'd like to see them get another veteran linebacker. I think they're fine at defensive end other than that. I'd like to see them add one more offensive lineman just to make sure to get the numbers right, because they're at 14 scholarship guys. Make sure they get the numbers right there. They're fine at running back. Quarterback's not an issue. Wide receiver isn't an issue anymore, and get a tight end. All right? That's what I say right now, and that still leaves room for another. And they're going to have a guy or two probably enter the portal when it opens up next week. April 15th, the portal opens again. We got 2 weeks of madness with the football portal open and basketball portal open. And again, we'll get to Curtis Wilkerson in a little bit to talk about that. All right, back to some of these breakdowns. Where are we at? Okay, where was I? We're talking about position groups, weren't we? All right, so I went through wide receivers. We just talked tight ends. Offensive line. Offensive line starting to take shape, and I'll say this. What I think is going to happen is Patrick Kudus is going to be your starting right tackle, okay? And what I know about Sam Pittman is he's going to get center figured out. He's already got that figured out. Bo Limmer started every single day at center through 11 practices. But he's going to get his tackle spots figured out. That's going to be the stomach. Need to eat something. He's going to get his tackle spots figured out. All right? And based on the first scrimmage that was closed entirely to the public and media, based on what we heard from that and talking to people who were there, tackle is a bit of an issue right now. Okay, I think that they feel most comfortable with Devon Manuel at left tackle. I don't know that they feel totally comfortable that he's won that job yet. I still think that there's a potential for Brady Latham to bump out to left tackle from his starting left guard spot. I think that he's going to figure out left tackle and right tackle, and then he's going to worry about who fits in at guard, okay? So it could be a case where you have two guys that have been working at guard for a good bit, and Kudus and Latham. And Kudus is a guy that they recruited to play tackle. Sam Pittman has said as much. But it could work out where those guys are playing tackle. And, when you think about some of the other players that are possibilities, to play guard who have also been, Takias Crawford. I think Takias Crawford is a guard. I kind of think that, either a Marion Harris is a guard or he's not quite ready to play tackle. I think Andrew Chamblee is definitely a tackle, but he probably needs to get a little stronger, cook a little bit longer before he's ready to go out there. But Manuel, I think it'll be Manuel or Latham at left tackle. Okay, if Latham is at left tackle, I'm not sure who the left guard is. It could be Kudus, but I think Kudus is going to end up being the right tackle. Now, you have to keep in mind also, for 3 practices, they've had Kudus at right tackle, and that's also because they want to give him every shot to win the right tackle spot. It's also, I think, because they weren't real encouraged coming away from the scrimmage about the right tackle spot. Now, part of that could be Landon Jackson, just an absolute beast, because he had a really good scrimmage, but I think it's probably more likely, somewhere in between that, Landon's a beast, playing at full speed for the first time, playing at 3/4 speed last year after coming off the ACL. But I also think probably just some inexperience at tackle. And I think it makes sense maybe to move Latham to left tackle. We'll see what Cody Kennedy, I know he's worked every single combination he can think of so far. But, Josh Braun, I feel better about him at right guard. I think, and not that I felt bad, I just mean like feeling better about him being the guy at right guard, like how things are shaking out. So I think it's going to end up being Patrick Kudus at right tackle, Josh Braun at right guard, Bo Limmer at center, left tackle, left guard, undecided, but Brady Latham in one of those spots. Okay, if he's Brady Latham at guard, then Devon Manuel at left tackle. If Brady Latham's at left tackle, then possibly Takias Crawford at left guard. Maybe a Marion Harris. But I think those are the guys that are competing. I think you got like 8 guys that are competing for starting jobs right now. Switching over to defense, defensive end spot looks really good to me. I really like what we're seeing out of Landon Jackson right now, Trajan Jeffcoat, they call Tree, John Morgan, Zach Williams, Jashad Stewart. They've got a package getting all those guys on the field at the same time, where you have Jashad Stewart, Landon Jackson at end, Trajan Jeffcoat, and John Morgan at defensive tackle. That's like a third and long type of set, Not bad. I mean, so just from a size perspective, you got, obviously you don't want to have 273 and 280 as your defensive tackles down after down, but in certain situations where you feel pretty confident they're going to throw the ball, it's not a bad combination to have on the interior. Get some nice quickness in there. And it's also maybe something that could alleviate a little bit their issues at defensive tackle, where you have, Tarian Carter, Eric Gregory. Those guys most of the spring have been your starters. You've also got Marcus Miller. You got Cam Ball, who has a ankle injury and has been out all spring. Well, not all spring, but after the first 7 practices or something, 6 practices, he's been out. And I know you look at it and you say, well, they get him back and they'll be in a lot better shape at defensive tackle. But somebody gets banged up every single year. I mean, last year you had Torian Carter, who was out for the whole year with an ACL. Towards the end of the year, you had Eric Gregory, who was out, who was a defensive end at the time, but they were in more of a 3-man front. But you're going to have somebody get banged up, okay? And you can't just be like, it looks great when they're healthy. I mean, we made that mistake last year with the secondary. Secondary looked fine, especially safety. And this might be a strong suit. And then you lose Jalen Catalon, you lose Miles Slusher, Latavius Brini plays hurt all season long. You have issues at cornerback with guys getting banged up, and you're moving guys around. It ended up being a disaster. A disaster so bad that they were last in the nation in pass defense. I don't think that's going to happen this year, though. I like what I see out of this defensive staff. I like the communication. I feel like on defense, it was almost like on Saturday, it's almost like they're being coached to over-communicate. Do it too much, just so you get used to it. So I like what I'm seeing from the defensive staff, the energy with them. I like what I'm hearing from the players, too. I mean, I know the players are always going to say generally good things, but you learn to read body language, read between the lines about how these guys talk. Talking with Antonio Greer, you talk a guy that's passionate and excited to be here and feels, just, as he would say, just blessed to feel so welcome and not like treated like an outsider. Talking with a lot of these guys, you kind of get that vibe from them. I thought it was cool to be able to talk to Andrew Armstrong and Isaac Tesla also for the first time the other day. Just talked to Snacks Johnson. Snacks Johnson got some dog in him. I mean, that guy, he didn't want to give any props to any of the wide receivers. I thought that was pretty interesting. Snacks Johnson. So Lorando Snacks Johnson. It's not an old nickname. Like Nudie McLuthern was named Nudie from a child because he liked to run around naked, I guess, when he was a kid. So they called him Nudie, and it stuck. Snacks Johnson was like a freshman at Baylor and brought some like hot Cheetos or something. And I think he said maybe he was a little pudgy. And so they started calling him Snacks, and then he made it XX to add some swag at the end. He couldn't just be SNACKS. Snacks Johnson. Yeah, he didn't want to give any wide receiver props at all. Got to have guys like that. Guys that you can just tell Antonio, Lorando, you can tell those guys, they've got an edge to them, just talking to them. Got to have those kind of guys on your team. Guys that are fighting for something. Not just for the team, but fighting for something personally. All right. So need to go get a couple of defensive tackles. We've established that. I mean, I think just what I've said here. You can look at your second team defensive interior, and it's Marcus Miller, who another guy's been. You talk about injuries. This guy has had injuries since high school. Praying for that guy to stay healthy for at least a year. Get some get some reps. I mean, it's just been one thing after another with Marcus Miller. But his second team guy next to him is Kyle Thompson. Okay. Kyle Thompson's done some good things. He's a 6'3", 267-pound redshirt freshman walk-on. That's a second-team defensive tackle. Nothing against Kyle Thompson, but I'm just saying, like, when we're talking about guys you want to put in for the SEC, you know what I'm talking about? Like, you need to have 5 at least guys you feel real good about on the defensive interior if you're running a 4-man front. If not, you need to go to a 3-man front. If not, you need to go back to a 3-man front, which I think most of us are ready to see something else, right? So, got to find a couple more defensive tackles. Now, the good news is there will be guys available, and we'll talk to Danny about that. There will be guys available. Last year, they got Terry Hampton very late. The portal system is different this year. They have portal windows now. They didn't used to have that, but they got Terry Hampton late last year. The year before that, a guy by the name of John Ridgway. That was a nice late addition. Looking at linebacker, I think it's getting pretty well. I don't know about set, but Christopher Paul, Antonio Greer. The more I watch this linebacker core, I like them more and more. And I worry a little bit about the youth and inexperience overall. But Carson Dean's coming along as a true freshman. Jordan Crook looks really good. I think, you talk about Antonio Greer, Jordan Crook, Chris Paul. You could have, which they've done in the past, a 3-man rotation. They did that with Bumper Pool, Drew Morgan, and Henry. I don't want to say Hunter. I don't want to say Hudson. I want to say, why am I not remember? I'm looking at it. I can see his face right now, and I can't remember which H he is. But anyway, they had a good rotation, and those guys are getting banged up and stuff. You'd like to have 4, obviously. You'd like to have as many as you can that you feel good about rotating in there. But I like that group. And I look at the schedule also, and I'm thinking, okay, there's first 3 games here. Maybe that's an opportunity for them to get acclimated. I think the first 3 games set up pretty well schedule-wise before you jump into SEC play. So maybe 3 games to get these guys' feet a little bit more wet. But Crook played, and Manny Powell too, guys. I'll say this about Manny Powell. That guy will pop you. Like, there were a couple of times, it's thud up. It's not tackle to the ground, but he'd come in and pop somebody, and they go 6 yards backwards. He was bringing some wood with him, and he's another guy that looks really good physically. I'd say Manny Powell, Jordan Crook, Antonio Greer, Carson Dean, Chris Paul are the guys that would probably stand out to me the most at linebacker right now. Safety. A little worried about safety. Now, the thing is, I feel pretty good about where they are with cornerback, okay? And if they're good at cornerback, then maybe they can shift something around. You just need better numbers. You've got to have, probably like 18 defensive backs on your team if you want to run, 5 defensive backs out there and have, an extra guy at every spot. You have, 5, 5, and 18. So you have an extra safety, an extra corner, and an extra nickel beyond that. So probably like 18 defensive backs. The good news is this day and age, they all kind of look more and more the same. They're all 6 foot plus. They're all, 180 pounds to 205, something like that. You don't see a whole lot of 215 safeties anymore. I know I'm repeating myself on that from probably last week, but you can mix some guys around. So maybe you have Jaheim Singletary. Maybe you have him move to a different spot. Lorando Johnson, I'll tell you what I liked about Lorando Johnson. Asked about playing nickelback and stuff. I don't have a position. I'm a football player. So, okay. I like that. I like that attitude. Maybe try him at safety. He's tried nickel. He's worked at corner. I mean, looking at it right now, at cornerback, you've got Lorando Johnson, Ladarius Bishop, Dwight McGlothern, Jalen Braxton, and you got Jaheim Singletary coming in. Okay? To me, that's about the number you want, but at the same time, you got to worry about safety. And at nickelback, I think that Al Walcott will come in when he gets healthy. Al Walcott's going to come in and take that nickelback spot. And you also have Jalen Lewis there who can give you a different, more of a cornerback style look there if you need that for depending on the offense that you're playing. So, I think you're okay there. And then you've worked, Hudson Clark has worked there. Lorando Johnson's worked there. So you had some other guys that have worked nickel if it comes down to something there. I just worry a little bit about the safety position. Hudson Clark is a quality player. I don't know if I would put him in the category of a difference maker, and you need a difference maker back there. Jaden Johnson, if we were coming off Jaden Johnson's freshman year, I'd say this guy's got a lot of promise. I just felt like last year he took a bit of a step back. TJ Metcalf, I don't trust freshman safeties. I just don't. I think the guy's got a ton of ability and a ton of potential. I just don't trust the last line of defense, a guy that can get tricked easily because he hasn't seen everything out there. Nothing against him. I think he's got a world of ability. I'm just saying it's hard to trust reliably a freshman safety. I think they need to go to the transfer portal. I think they need to bring in a guy or two that's a defensive back, basically, and preferably play safety because otherwise you're just moving guys around. That's what I think. It would be nice to find a difference maker safety. There's an opening, a job opening. You can just post it somewhere. Hey, you can look. We need this position. That's what I would do if I was Arkansas. Kicker Cam Little, punter Max Fletcher, long snapper Eli Stein, and holder Max Fletcher. Those jobs are not up for debate right now. I haven't seen anything from any of the walk-on punters that would make me think they're going to challenge Max. He needs to get more consistent. He needs to, he can check the ball up. He can boom the ball, but he can also have a really bad punt. I've seen it plenty of times. I thought they had a punt period on Thursday that was just absolutely worthless. One of the punters dropped a punt, picked it up, kicked it. I clocked it at 1.98 seconds. 4 drops by the return men. I think Dylan Haas dropped 1, Bryce Stevens dropped 1, and Chris Harris dropped 2. It's a 10-minute punt period, and you got a punter dropping 1. You only had a couple of decent punts, and you had 4 drops. I mean, got to do better there. Okay. I think I covered everything I wanted to cover there. And I do want to get to my man Danny West now, who's going to update us on the latest happenings with recruiting. For those of you who don't follow Danny West, you can follow him at HawgSports. That's HAWG sports.com. That's the website, part of the 24/7 Sports Network under the CBS Interactive umbrella, under the umbrella of Paramount Global. But follow Danny at Danny West 247 on Twitter for all the recruiting news that you want. HawgSports is just $1 for your first month, and if you want to read Danny's stuff and all the recruiting and portal information, then you need a VIP membership. How's it going, Danny?
It's going. Busy week, busy weekend. I'm excited for it.
You know the title of today's show?
Big recruiting week?
No, but that could have worked. It's Amazing Arkansas April, because it really has been. I mean, I had a good time at the scrimmage. It wasn't really a scrimmage. It was non-tackle, but, they ran 80-plus team plays, probably up to 100. The basketball portal stuff has been good, and we'll talk to Curtis after you. But football recruiting and, the portal's about to open again. You got another week before 2 weeks of – what do you want to call it? 2 weeks of what, Danny?
Hell.
That's where I figured you were probably going.
Yeah. No, it's going to be good. I'm excited about it, to be honest. Hey, it's the 45-day stretch that's a little much.
Yeah,
I can do anything for 15 days,
Yeah.
Just about anything.
Yeah, absolutely. So right now Arkansas has 5 commitments, currently ranked 20th nationally on 24/7 Sports and in the composite ranking. Kavion Henderson, a 4-star defensive lineman out of Leeds, Alabama, number 161 overall prospect. Norrell White, athlete out of Ocean Springs, Mississippi. Look at these Mississippi and Alabama guys. Julius Pope, a recent commitment, and we'll talk about him. Juju Pope out of Batesville, Mississippi, another 4-star. I don't think I said Norrell White's also a 4-star. KJ Jackson, who just committed out of Montgomery, Alabama, the quarterback in the class, another 4-star, and then Deion Stutz out of Memphis University School, who's a top 600 player nationally, another defensive lineman. Where do you want to start, Danny? I'll let you pick where you want to start.
Let's go with Juju.
Okay, let's go Juju Pope. Yep.
Yeah, he was first on Saturday. So, it's the first time that I've ever seen the first 4 commitments, Trey, come from out of state. And, at the time, all 4 were defensive guys. That's probably also a first for me.
Yeah.
Granted, Braylon Russell was the first to commit. Obviously, he came off the board. So I'm counting Kavion Henderson as the first commitment, okay? So we'll caveat there. But, yeah, Juju, man, big-time pickup. You mentioned Mississippi there. I just don't know what's going on. I have a feeling it's Marcus Woodson, though.
Yeah.
I mean, what a job he's done, man. I've never seen Arkansas go into Mississippi. And, if you step back, man, and just kind of take a look at where the best players in the country come from, Arkansas is starting to recruit that whole, not circle, but oval, really, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, even Florida, still in Texas, obviously. But I've never seen them hit that SEC circle so hard, and right now it's working for them. So got Juju. Just talked to Norreal White this morning. He said, I know I had a good Easter. How about you? He was pretty fired up about this one. So 6 foot, 195, can do it all. Fun film to watch. We're talking running back, outside linebacker, receiver, safety. And, we see that a lot, Trey, here in the state, too. You get a kid like that, you play him everywhere. I remember back in the day we had Tyrell Johnson. That sucker played all over the field. So probably the same type guy, but if I had to guess, probably going to be a hybrid. Could play outside linebacker, going to need a little weight, but maybe a nickel type for Juju Pope. But seemed like he was really fired up earlier in March when he got up here for a visit. And again, Marcus Woodson, man, I can't say enough about him. I was reading about another Mississippi kid on the FSU site this morning, Jacoby Hobson. He's a 2025, already visited, 4-star. I want to say he's top 50 in the country next year, top 100 anyway. And even he had, in the article, they were talking about the importance of Marcus Woodson for this Mississippi kid. And lo and behold, Woodson now at Arkansas, obviously, he's trying to pull him to Fayetteville. So we'll see if that trend continues. It's brand new territory for me. I've never seen Arkansas hit the state of Mississippi like that. And good for them, man, because there is a lot of talent there. And typically it stays at home, with Ole Miss, Mississippi State, or they leave for LSU, Bama, places like that. So good start in Mississippi.
Danny West joining us again. You can follow him at Danny West 24/7 on Twitter. He's the HawgSports recruiting analyst. You can visit that site at HawgSports.com. Marcus Woodson from Moss Point, Mississippi, so he's a Mississippi native. But yeah, they're doing tremendous work recruiting that state. And Mississippi is a talent producer. They're about the same size as Arkansas, right around 3 million people. But they produce at such a high level. There's 14 4-star players in that state. How many in Arkansas? Maybe 4 or 5 this year, and it's a good year.
Something like that.
It's a good year, so it just shows you that they just produce more talent. The problem with Mississippi for the Mississippi schools is, the 2 closest schools in the SEC. You know what they are, Danny?
2 closest, probably Oxford and Starkville.
No, you got one of them, Starkville and Tuscaloosa.
Oh, Tuscaloosa.
Yeah.
Other side of the
They're not far away, so obviously Alabama's, easy, coming in and picking targets out of there. For Arkansas, it's always been, there's not a whole lot of teams that come in and take players out of here. It happens, 1 a year or something like that, maybe 2.
Yeah.
It happens, but you've got a little bit more, ease to
a little bubble.
Right, a little more bubble for the guys that you have, although you don't produce as much talent. Let's switch over to KJ Jackson. It's eerie how similar these guys' recruiting profiles are to KJ Jefferson. KJ obviously was from Mississippi, North Panola, and KJ Jackson, did I say KJ? KJ Jefferson was from, I'll mess that up, just referring to both of them as KJ. Yeah. But KJ Jackson is from Montgomery, Alabama, St. James School. Both of them were like 6'3", 215 coming out of high school. Both of them were like kind of on the lower end 4-star recruit, like almost identical. Now, this KJ Jackson, I would say, is more of a thrower than KJ Jefferson was. This guy threw for well over 4,000 yards, and KJ put up some pretty solid numbers, but KJ was not as polished as a passer as this guy is, whereas KJ, as a runner, long strider, I remember thinking he was such a long strider coming out of high school, was definitely more accomplished as a runner, though KJ Jackson can also run pretty well.
Yeah, I would agree with that assessment. And, last June, KJ Jackson came to camp, and I'll never forget this. Probably going to be one that I'll never forget. We've all got a few recruiting stories like that, but I remember watching him throw that day, and I thought Kendall Brown is going to offer this guy, surely, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it was that type of throwing performance, and lo and behold, they didn't. I was a little bit surprised at the time, not saying anything about KB. He's got, at the time, DJ Lagway, Walker White's, still on board. It's, still on the table for him at the time. So he had different options. So I don't blame him there. But I remember thinking I need to talk to this guy anyway, So I walked over and sure enough, ended up talking to him. And first thing you recognize is how mature he is. He's really polished in the interview, smart kid. And, I could just tell, he's feeling Arkansas the way he threw it that day. He told me last week after his visit, he said, it's just something about Arkansas, man. When I came up here and threw, I felt really comfortable, and that means a lot to a quarterback. And, got him back on campus last Tuesday. I think he just felt really comfortable. And then, of course, it's the SEC factor. Now, I'm not saying that's why he picked Arkansas over North Carolina, but you're talking about a kid from an SEC state, not just an SEC state, but Alabama. They probably know a thing or two about what it means, to kids down there. So take nothing away from Carolina, man. They've been really good under Mac Brown, produced a lot of really good quarterbacks. That's kind of why you got Jacoby on campus right now, and Carolina's been really good. But in the end, I think that SEC meant a lot to him. Dan, he knows, obviously, when he got here, settled in, he offered him. And he's a guy who helped produce and develop guys like Jalen Hurts and Tua, a left-handed guy, in Tua. So KJ Jackson being left-handed, there was just a lot that added up there. And, man, these dominoes started to fall quickly, didn't they? I mean, you look up suddenly, and Arkansas offered 15 in this class quarterbacks, and 13 are off the table now. I mean, that's a lot for April 10th. So, I think you had to make a run at Aaron Nolan. You'd be crazy not to. Got him on a 2-day visit in, I want to say, mid-March. And obviously he picked Ohio State over the weekend, so congrats to Air. But I think Arkansas ended up with a pretty good one here.
I agree with you. Danny, switching over to this past weekend visitors, I know maybe the headline guy was the defensive tackle Trill. Trill Carter. Trill Carter. But they had plenty of visitors in. Obviously, for those who don't know, we're in pretty busy recruiting time. You can have official visitors come in until June 27th. So, and he was one of those. But you had plenty of other visitors in town. Just quickly run down maybe the key things to watch there with the visitors that came in.
Yeah, there were several. Going back to last Tuesday, Jaden Ball is a guy that I like out of Georgia, and I'm going to call him a running back. He's being recruited by Jimmy Smith, and I don't know about you, Trey, but it just seems like Jimmy's kind of reached that status of, just benefit of the doubt. He's going to find a good one. He's going to sign a good one. And I think Jaden Ball, scheduling already an official visit with Arkansas in June, that says a lot about where Arkansas is headed with him. And then this weekend you look up at the running back spot, you're getting guys on campus again like Nate Palmer out of Decatur, Texas. I forget which high school, forgive me. Braylon Russell will be back on hand. Heard from C.J. Brown, wide receiver from Bentonville this morning. He's coming back this weekend. I want to say that's going to be C.J.'s fourth visit here in about 8 weeks or so keep an eye on that one. Grayson Wilson, we talk every week about Grayson, 2025 quarterback out of CAC. He'll be back this weekend. I want to say this is going to be visit number 5, Trey, since January 21. So, I mean, you can do the math on that. That's shaping up there. So, I know you asked me about last week's visits. Mm-hmm. Man, I'm past it already. You know what I mean? I kind of flush them as soon as they get out of here and start to make a new list. But it should be a really good spring game week visit list. Jaden Allen, 4-star corner, coming back this weekend. He's already set an official for June as well, June 2nd. Kobe Branham is a guy, Fort Smith Northside interior lineman, 6'5", 320. Keep an eye on that one. I mentioned Nate Palmer, Tevis Metcalf, obviously TJ Metcalf's younger brother. Been here several times, going to be back for the spring game as well. So a lot of guys there. It's April. You hear me talk all the time that June and July are the the really busy months for commitments. I'm not so sure they're going to slow this one down yet. I could see a few more popping pretty soon.
Yeah, so it was a great title for the show, Amazing April.
You nailed it, dude.
Yeah, I nailed it. Quick guess, Danny, who do you think might be next to pop for Arkansas out of the high school ranks?
All those guys I just mentioned. No, I'll you know what? Let's go in-state. And there's probably 6-7 guys right now. I need to make a post on the board. Matter of fact, I'll list them all. But Kobe Branham might be a safe pick. In-state guy just over the weekend. I'm kind of cheating here because he said within a month I would like to make a decision. I want to start focusing on my senior year, and lo and behold, he schedules a trip to Arkansas for the spring game next week. Already been here a couple of times this offseason. So you ask me, I'll probably go safe pick. In-state guy, Kobe Branham. I like their chances there.
All right, Danny. Appreciate you hopping on with us.
Yes, sir.
All right, everybody. That's Danny West again. At Danny West 24/7. He's the HawgSports recruiting analyst, and you can check out all his information at our website, HawgSports.com, HAWG sports.com. We're going to go over to Curtis Wilkerson now. Curtis has been also very busy with basketball recruiting, obviously coming away from the NCAA tournament. The transfer portal opened the day after Selection Sunday, and Arkansas has been extremely busy with basketball.
Hey, Trey.
Hey, Curtis. Sorry for the late. I told you earlier, but we ran a little bit long talking football, as we tend to do sometimes. Curtis, I just want to jump right into it with you. Obviously, this is transfer portal season for basketball. It has been wild. Guys leaving, guys coming back. Let's just kind of overviewing it right now. You've got Mikael Mitchell has recently said he's entering the portal. Nick Smith Jr. going to the NBA, Ricky Council going to the NBA. I'll say what's surprising to me is that all the guys that are coming back that are confirmed, Darian Ford coming back, Barry Dunning coming back, not Trevon Brazile. That wasn't surprising because he's coming off the ACL injury. Jalen Graham is not totally surprising, but a little bit. Joseph Pinion coming back. And then you got Devo Davis on the fence. We're still awaiting announcements for Anthony Black, Jordan Walsh, Makai Mitchell. So yeah, that's a lot right there just on your own roster. But then stepping outside of it, bringing guys in, and Arkansas has recently gotten some commitments out of the portal.
Yeah, for sure. It's nice to see some clarity coming with the roster. It was kind of a unique situation for Arkansas to only have one guy, in Kamani Johnson, who was exhausting that eligibility. So we're kind of in that day and age where literally everyone has some kind of decision to make. It's kind of weird to see, maybe a true freshman. We talk about guys like Ford and Pinion and Dunning. They almost have to come out and declare, hey, I'm not transferring. Here's my statement. It's just kind of the nature of the beast nowadays. So I think it's a good thing, for Arkansas to get some continuity going here. I think that was something that impacted them at times last year, only having 2 returners back on the roster. I think Musselman would prefer to have a little bit more of a blend there, and I think we're going to see that. You mentioned Brazile. I think that's a huge one. Graham, a senior Ford who's kind of, a guy who I think accepts the role that he's in. And you need those things. And I think all 3 of those freshmen are guys that can develop and have an increased role here moving forward. But, yeah, obviously portal season's a little bit wild. It's guys that we were talking about last week that Arkansas was hot on. There's a lot of smoke for. Some of them have faded, and some new guys have emerged. But, 2 really, I think, great additions so far. And Keon Minifield, out of Washington, just an electric guard. He's a guy who's going to have the ball in his hands. Kind of reminds me a little bit, of maybe a J.D. Note type in terms of the way he can create.
Maybe a more willing passer.
Boy, we hope so. Maybe a more willing passer, yeah. But he can handle the ball. It's hard to take that thing away from him. Can create at all levels, and you mentioned his passing. He passes the ball, and he doesn't turn it over, and so that's what you like to see. Arkansas turn it over a little bit more than years past this season, but he had the best assist to turnover ratio in the Pac-12 among freshmen. So really nice addition there. And then obviously yesterday, Tremont Mark out of Houston, this is a major, major addition. I mean, we're talking about a guy here who was a full-time starter for a team that was a number one seed in the NCAA tournament. So just an absolute winner, proven experience. Kelvin Sampson's teams, man, they're tough. They really get after you on the defensive end. So, when Arkansas watches this guy, I think they're going to be reminded, maybe of a little bit bigger version of Devo Davis with the way he gets after it defensively. I think he's going to draw some of those tough assignments on the perimeter, and he can score it for you. He can get his way to the rim, knocks down that mid-range jumper. So, he had 26 and 9 on Auburn in the NCAA tournament, so I think you'll take that. But, a couple really, really nice additions here to start things off.
Curtis Wilkerson joining us again. You can follow him at @KurtWilkerson_ and read all of his transfer portal news at HawgSports, HawgSports.com. So this weekend with guys coming in for visits, Khalif Battle, a guy that I like a lot. Jaden Taylor, did he make it in? And Jameer Watkins also.
Yeah, yep. All three of those guys made it in. You mentioned Khalif Battle there. You kind of start looking at the needs, and the things that Arkansas needs to add here to the roster. I think they need a guy who can go get one, right, and create a basket. Obviously, people were going nuts wanting some three-point shooting, and this guy, you can kind of kill two birds with one stone. I mean, he averaged nearly 18 a game at Temple, one of the most pure scorers, I think, that's available in the transfer portal. And he made 77 threes at a pretty good percentage there. So, I think Arkansas is in a really good spot there. It was interesting. You mentioned Jameer Watkins. This is the guy from VCU, a 6'7" forward, really athletic. He just kind of fits that mold of the type of guy that Musselman usually gets in the transfer portal. And they were high school teammates back at Trenton Catholic a few years ago. So some intriguing connections there between those two guys. And then you mentioned Jaden Taylor. This is a guy from the Big East who led Butler in scoring, a 6'4" guard, really, really talented player, another guy that can go and create some offense. So seeing a lot of guards and wings coming in for Arkansas here, it's going to be interesting. I think some dominoes are going to start falling here pretty soon. Out of that group of three, I think Arkansas is in really good shape to land at least one, maybe multiple of those guys here sooner rather than later. But from there, we'll kind of see what they need. I mean, people are looking at do they need to add a big man? I don't know. We'll see what happens, but it's just never a dull moment with Musselman in the portal. Yeah.
And we talked about the guys that are coming back, the guys that are still on the fence, and that could dictate a lot of where they go, obviously. We've got Tremont. Is it Tremont or Tremont? Tremont. You got Tremont Mark, Kenyon Minifield, Bayfall coming in out of the high school ranks, 5-star center out of Denver, and then Layden Blocker also coming in, 5-star point guard. So do you see anybody else in particular coming in for a visit? Maybe it's not scheduled, or maybe it's happening coming up.
Yeah, we'll see. I think so. I would imagine they'll have a few more visitors in. It probably kind of depends on when some of these guys make their final decisions. We're still waiting on a couple on potential stay or go NBA type deals, and then obviously the visitors we just mentioned who might be looking to announce a decision here on where they want to go pretty soon. So that'll impact needs a little bit. I think one to maybe keep an eye on is Tyler Perry out of North Texas, the Conference USA Player of the Year. I think he was visiting Florida last weekend, but he's got some ties to the area, played some of his high school ball in Springdale. So, a guy that has a good relationship with Ronnie Brewer. He's indicated that he'd like to come check things out. So he would be one that I'd probably have my eyes on here pretty soon for a potential visit. And then from there, we'll see. I think if they land a guard or two here from this group that they've really been hot on lately, then maybe the focus shifts a little bit towards big men. But it's really interesting. The front court is that one part I'm still trying to kind of figure out, what they're doing here, because you got some big time targets who are making some decisions here pretty soon. And then after that, it gets a little bit thin in terms of the potential options there. So that's probably the most intriguing part of this to me is up front.
I mean, there's a lot of guys that you've outlined that they've contacted. They contact everybody, all 1,300 players in the portal, basically. Would you say Khalif Battle's maybe the top guy left on the board for him, or is there some, and in terms of like feeling like there's some actual traction happening?
Yeah, I think right now, I mean, that's a guy that we're pretty zeroed in here on, and maybe in terms of some commitment watch here pretty soon. Again, just he really fits what they're looking for. I mean, he ranks number 12, out of like you said, over 1,300 players in the portal right now. And Arkansas has been after him hard. It sounds like that visit went really, really well, and that he's closing in on decisions. So, when you get to the point where you just got a guy on campus and he's looking to make a decision, that's usually a fairly good sign. So I would say he's definitely at the top of the list right now.
All right, Curtis. Anything else you care to add before we let you loose?
Oh, man, I think that about covers it. But, I'll get off the phone here and check my texts and DMs, and I might have some more. So that's just how it works during this time of year.
Never stops. All right, Curtis. Appreciate you, brother.
Yep, you got it.
All right, everybody. That's Kurt Wilkerson. Again, at Kurt Wilkerson _. Curtis does a great job covering basketball, analyzing basketball, breaking it all down for you at HawgSports. Let's see. Do we have any questions? We got some questions. I'm going long today. I usually try to cut it off about 50 minutes or so. That's when the voice starts going, but we'll see what happens. Let's see if we got any interesting questions. Yeah, Jonathan Parker wanted Curtis to talk about everything that he talked about. Glad to see that. Josh Smith says, Trey, seems like our defense is getting much needed boost from players and coaches. What's your take? I would agree. I like what I see from the coaches out there. I like seeing the communication with the players. I just think there's a couple of spots here and there that they need to address. Again, I like corner. I like linebacker. I worry a little bit about the experience at linebacker, but I think the way the schedule shapes up of those first 3 games, they're going to be okay. I like where they're at defensive end and want to see them add a couple of defensive tackles. But I like the recruiting that I'm seeing with the defensive staff. I like the way they interact with each other. Marcus Woodson really stands out to me. Travis Williams does too, in different ways. And Darren Wilson stands out. I mean, and of course, Deke Adams, it's nice to see another defensive line coach for the second year in a row, because when we've broken this down before, it has been a long time since Arkansas has had a second-year defensive line coach. A long time. I mean, you have to go back John Scott to Kenny Ingram to Derek LeBlanc to Jermile Ashley to Deke Adams. I think that's all of them. All one-year coaches. Not John Scott. He was a two-year coach, I think. But he was, obviously his last year was with Chad Morris, and then his first year was the last year under Bielema, I believe, if I remember that correctly. Jonathan Parker says, how many passes on third down behind the sticks? I hear you. Josh Grubb says, what's happening with Johnson at running back? He's one of the guys on the side, just doing reps, trying to get back healthy from the knee injury. He will be healthier sooner than he was last year, because last year he got hurt in the bowl game. So it was, a slower comeback when the season started. So I think you got to be hopeful that maybe he could be back by fall camp this year. Justin Williams says this Arkansas team is going to SEC dark horse this year. So many people are going to be sleeping on Arkansas football. They always are. Sometimes they should be sleeping and other times not. With Arkansas football, with KJ coming back and having solid running backs and beefing up the defense and the secondary. Now, if the offense can be comparable to what it was last year and the defense improves, then they got a chance to be pretty good. They should have won 8 games last year, at least. They had trouble winning close games in the middle part of the season. They bookended, I guess, with Cincinnati winning a close game, and then against Kansas winning a close game that never should have been close. But they had trouble in the middle of the season winning close games, lost that Liberty game. Otherwise, they're, an 8-win team. They're just one off the pace from the year before. But having KJ come back, obviously, is big. And if KJ were to get banged up like he did last year, I think he'd feel a lot better about Jacoby Criswell. Because I do feel like Criswell, the way it's looking right now, you can kind of say, this is probably the next guy in line after KJ's gone. Lauren Morris says, they said where the primary alignment on D is going to be 4-2-5. Yes, it'll be a 4-2-5. Isaac Riley says, I went to my first baseball game last weekend against Bama, and it was so awesome. Hayden Henry, appreciate that, Christopher. I don't know. I'm probably going to get a phone call from Henry because I forgot. But, yeah, I was looking at his face. I just couldn't. It's what happens when you name all your kids with an H. It starts getting confusing. I think Houston Nutt did that too with his kids. Named them all H's. Justin Williams says Chris Paul and Suns are getting ready for a playoff run also. Yeah, I'm talking about the other Chris Paul. Cole Big Red Eddie says, what's up, Cole? What's up, Trey Biddy? You ready to beat Tennessee this weekend? It's always an entertaining series just because of the dynamic with the coaches, Vitello and Dave Van Horn, obviously. Kingsley, last name I'm not going to try to pronounce that. Has Clark's gained any weight this offseason? Hudson, he's gained a little bit, but he's still – I don't look at him and say, like, this is a, big hulking safety or anything. I mean, I think he could add some more weight. It was apparent, sometime in tackling. That's why I say, like, probably just need to go – I think Hudson can obviously play for you and help you, but you need difference makers in this conference. And you need one at least one in every level, And they don't have that at safety right now. Is the spring game on TV? It's on TV. I can't remember what channel. I think it might be streaming. It's a SEC Network or SEC Network Plus, but it is on TV. I think Aaron Murray and Dave Neal are calling the game. So I know that. And they're SEC Network guys, so it'll be on one of the two. You will be able to watch it. Jimbo James Hamilton says, Anton, no, it's on TV. I think you typoed there. It's streaming only, says Dalton Adams. Okay, that makes sense. Justin Williams says team's not going to underperform. Norman Hunt says define underperform. Brian Malone says not hearing or reading a lot about KJ is doing with the new offensive changes. What do you see? I noted that the other day. Glad you brought that up because I don't think I've written an article about KJ this spring. I don't think that Andrew Ellis has written an article about KJ this spring. And it's because, he's kind of a known commodity. You know what you get in KJ. And, we've written some stuff about how the offense and how it could impact him a little bit. He will line up under center more. You see play action passes, RPO. They go fast. They slow it down on offense. I see a lot of throws over the middle. I think where KJ is going to benefit the most having Dan Enos is in the technical aspects of throwing the ball. The guy completed 68% of his passes last year. It's a solid percentage rate, completion rating. That's second all-time in Arkansas history, only behind Felipe Franks, who recently did that. So he's been – and I don't think anybody throws a deep ball much better than KJ Jefferson, on the college ranks. He throws a really nice deep ball. His shorter stuff has tended to be a little off the mark. I mean, you always want it same spot. The receivers know where it's coming. And he has a tendency sometimes to nose down a ball, a little wobbly on the spiral sometimes. And I think that's areas where Dan Enos can help him. KJ did not come in as a super polished passer. He had a hitch in his throwing motion. They had to work through that. They obviously corrected it. But he doesn't throw like just a whoosh, super tight spiral on, the shorter stuff. Long ball is pretty nice ball. And that's where I think that Enos can polish him up a little bit. Remember, Brandon Allen, he was talked about a little bit as having a pro future, but nobody expected him to have the season that he had under Enos, and a lot of that is Dan Enos' teachings. So, play calling, how is that going to work? How the rhythm is going to be? Is it going to be better than Kendall Browse? We'll see. As far as a pure passer, teacher of quarterbacks, I think that Enos, has a leg up on Browse in that category. And I'm not like downplaying Browse or anything. If the offense had done what it did last year, if they'd have been better at the goal line also, and if the defense had been better last year, then, nobody'd have a problem with Browse's offense. So Jonathan Parker says, I can't remember, did Catalon play as a true freshman? If not, who was the last true freshman to start at safety? So Catalon played as a true freshman. He did not start. He redshirted. They did a poor job managing his redshirt. Like, they put him in for a couple of kneel-down plays against Ole Miss. Just a worthless game for him. He actually ended up having shoulder surgery as a freshman, and a lot of people thought he got hurt as a freshman, but he didn't. He was already hurt, and he was playing through it, and he just ran out of games to play, with a couple games left, because they I mean, they did the same thing with Devin Bush. Devin Bush entered the transfer portal after 4 games and came back and then entered it again. But the last true freshman to start at safety, Miles Slusher, I felt like he played some at safety. I don't remember him starting or not, but Catalan did start a game. The last game he played in, I believe he started. If he didn't, he came in and played the majority of the game. Lisa Hancock says, love your post, and yeah, I love you reading our post, Lisa. Masters, congratulations, John Rahm. I got my Bet Saracen app, and I put a little bit of money on John Rahm to be in the final group. Bet Saracen app is very well laid out and fun to use. If you haven't downloaded it yet, it's worth taking a look at Bet Saracen. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining me. Thanks to Danny West for hopping on with us, breaking down all the recruiting stuff. Thank you to all of you for logging in and checking out the show. And thanks for consuming our content at HawgSports. There's my voice starting to trick me a little bit. We've gone long. But I really appreciate all you guys checking us out at HawgSports and watching HawgSports Live, supporting the show by reading our articles, our free stuff, and, of course, our VIP subscribers who get the real in-depth stuff. If you are a diehard Razorback fan and you don't want to spend $1 to check us out, I don't know what to tell you, but it's going to be worth it. And the reason we offer it for $1 is because we know we'll hook you. That's how we get you. So come in and check us out at HawgSports, HawgSports.com, part of the 24/7 Sports Network in partnership with CBS Interactive US and, of course, under the Paramount Global umbrella. A lot of great features there, recruiting, team coverage. I mean, we cover it all at HawgSports. All the money sports, football, basketball, baseball, at HawgSports.com. All right, everybody. I think that's it. $1 right now for your first month. I think we did the show. Went long. We went almost 70 minutes on this show. It's one of the longer ones. So we had a lot to cover. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining me. This has been Trey Biddy with HawgSports.com, and we'll catch you next time.